Today, we geek out about flaming pyramids. Hey guys, what's going on? This is Lee with Geek City USA here, and today we're going to talk about a game by Cheeky Parrot Games called Flaming Pyramids. Now, this is a tile-laying game for 2 to 6 players, and everybody plays a builder, and you're working to build the pyramid and basically use all of your building supplies, but you're hoping that you can cause some mayhem on your opponent, thus making it a little bit more difficult for them to win the game. So I'm going to take you over here. I'll give you a brief overview on how the game runs, and then we'll come back and I'll give you my thoughts on the game. Okay, this is Flaming Pyramids. Now, first and foremost, I'm going to say that this is a prototype copy of the game, so all of the art and components are subject to change. And in fact, I think the art that's on here is just placeholder art. If you look on the Kickstarter page, you should get a good example of what the finalized art of this game is going to look like. Now, I've set this up for a 3-player game, and when you set this up, you're going to deal out the pyramid tiles evenly to all players. If you have any left over, you can place them in the middle to begin to build a pyramid. In this case, with 3-player games, they all deal out perfectly even. Now, each player is going to start with 5 tiles in their hand, and that will make their starting hand. All right, so in Flaming Pyramids, we are building a pyramid, and the goal of each player is to be the first to get rid of all of their materials. Now, if you look here, the material deck consists of, here's some straw, here's wood, there's some stone, and each card has both a color and a number. Now, when you're placing these tiles, there are going to be some placement rules based upon what color they are and what their numbers are, kind of like you can consider that as what their weight is. So just for an example of kind of how the game plays, let's say player 1 here is going to start out. There's no tiles making up the pyramid right now, so they can place whatever they want. So let's just say we'll start with this. This is a heavier tile, we'll want it to be on the bottom, and we will go ahead, we have 4 tiles left, draw up player 1, and then we can go over to player 2. Now player 2 isn't going to have anything to play on top of, so they can place whatever tile. There's no placement rules when you're placing to the left or the right on the bottom. So they'll go ahead and they'll place their 100 tile here. And then they can draw back up to 5, and we'll go up to player 3. Now player 3 is going to have to play on top here. So now the rule is going to be that they either have to match one of these colors, which is obviously the red or the yellow. You'll have to match one of these numbers, which is 120 or 100. And also, you have to make sure that the number of the item that you're placing is not higher than the 2 you're placing it on. In that case, it's too heavy and it'll collapse and cause some mayhem, which we will cover here in a second. And we'll also cover how these fire tiles work. So in this case here, this user can just place the 60 right here. No problem there with the rules. And then we can go ahead and draw up, and we'll go back to player 1. Now I'll do another round here just to kind of show a little more examples. So player 1 here obviously can't play on top because there's nowhere to play. We'll have to play to the left or the right. So we can just pick any one here and we can put it right like so. Draw back up and we go over to player 2. Now player 2 has to play on top here, and they would have to either place a red tile, a 120, a 10, or I should say not or, but and make sure that it is less than the total there. So it would have to be under 130. So in this case, if I place this 120, that 120 matches that, even though the colors don't match, that is a perfectly legal placement. And we'll draw up, and we'll go back to player 3. We have to place on the top here, and we will place this yellow 60 because that matches, and we will draw up from there. Now, what happens if you can't match? So let's say that this tile is not here, and this player just has, let's say that they only have, we'll say green and, for an example here, green and, well, the yellow doesn't work, does it? Here we go, green and blue. So let's say this is the hand that they have. Well, they would have to place the tile, so let's say they place this 10 on top. Now, this 10 does not match these 2 tiles here. So mayhem occurs. Now what's going to happen then, and I will put these back on top here, is these 2 tiles beneath the one that doesn't match will collapse, and then this falls down, and the person can choose which way to put it. Now obviously they would want to put it here so that way there's a legal match, otherwise it'll collapse further. And these two tiles that do not, or that did not match, that cause a problem, go on the bottom of their stack, which is going to make it harder for them to finish the game, because obviously now they have more tiles. Now let's talk about these ember tiles. This is a straw ember tile, and if you were to place this and you were to place it, let's say I placed it by stone or what have you, it would be just fine. However, if you place this next to any other straw, there's going to be a straw fire. So in this case, I can place this here, which is a totally legal placement, because that is a green one, which it doesn't break the weight restriction here, and it also matches the color. But because that's a straw fire, that is going to cause a fire down through all of the straw tiles on the board. So in this case, this tile here catches fire with these three tiles. Now these three tiles that caught fire are going to go onto the bottom of the player's pile that played this tile. And because this caused a fire, this tile is now out of the game. So we'll straighten these out. So now this player has even more tiles in their stack. Now this wood fire tile here works in much the same way, but when you place this, it's going to catch fire with all of the wood that's on the board. So in this case, although this is not a legal placement by any means, this wood would catch the surrounding wood as well. And these tiles would go to the bottom of the player who placed this tile, and then this would be taken out of the game. Now there are also explosions that can happen. So let's say one player is placing this straw ember tile right here. Now this would not cause a fire because this is wood and this is stone, so the straw is not going to catch that. But if the next player were to play this wood fire ember, and they place this here, now these two tiles being together would cause an explosion. So whenever you have two tiles, two ember tiles together, they are going to cause an explosion. And what happens is any tile that is touching these two tiles are removed from the board and placed on the bottom of the stack of the player who played those cards. So in this case, if player 2 played this, these two would explode. All of these would explode as well because they are, destroyed. These are taken out of the game, and these would go onto the bottom of player 2's stack. And finally, there's also the curse. So if you ever place 3 tiles with the same number, so you see here there's a 2, there's a 2. If a player were to place this tile here, this completes the curse. And then what happens is the 3 tiles that have matching numbers are removed from the board and are given to the player to the right of the player who played that last tile. So in this case, if player 2 played that final 2, these would be taken off and go to the bottom of player 3's stack. As well as any kind of collapses that are caused would also go to the bottom of player 3's stack as well. And that, in a nutshell, is how to play Flaming Pyramids. And we'll take you back up top, and I will give you my thoughts on the game. All right, guys, that was Flaming Pyramids. So let me start off by saying that was a prototype copy of the game. So the final components are subject to change, as well as the art. I believe the majority of the art on the prototype that I had was using placeholder art. And if you look on the Kickstarter page, you should be able to get a better idea of what the final art will be. So definitely take a look at the page to see a final representation of the game. So let's start by talking about the gameplay of the game. So Flaming Pyramids is a game that is very simple at its core. You're basically placing tiles and you have just a few restrictions with which to keep in mind when it comes to placing them. But this is a game that plays very smoothly. It's an easy game to teach, and it's a game that is accessible to a wide audience of people. All right, so let's talk about the audience of this game. So like I said, this game is very easy to pick up and teach, and as a result, I think this is the perfect game for like a family game night or a casual game night with maybe, family or neighbors that might not be into heavy games. It's a perfect game to introduce to them, to take them outside of their comfort zone of maybe the monopolies and everything that they're used to. But this is also a game that I think can be used for heavier gamers as well. The gameplay is 10, maybe 20 minutes a game, so it's a game that's quick to play, so you can play it in between your heavier games and longer games. And it also works very well, as the way we played it with our heavier groups, as a good introduction game to get the day going. When you have game night and you're going to play multiple games, it's a perfect way to kind of start the blood pumping, because there's enough and there's enough player interaction that it really gets the banter up, and it's a lot of fun. And with such an accessible audience, there's definitely a high replayability factor to this game. The games are quick, so it's something that you can play multiple times in a row. It's also something that's not big to take with you, so if you're having a game night, you can throw it in the bag of games that you're taking with you, and you can pull it out and play a quick game of it. Now, all in all, we've enjoyed this game. This has been a hit on family game night. My kids really enjoy the game, and it's also been well received with our casual game groups especially. So I would definitely recommend that you check this game out, especially if you're into tile laying games, if the theme seems interesting to you, or you're looking for that game that you want to be able to introduce to your casual gamers or your lightweight gamers, or if you're just looking for a filler game in between your heavier games. All right, guys, that's it. Thanks for hanging out with us. Be sure to like and comment down below, subscribe if you don't already, and check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all that other stuff. Once again, thanks for hanging out with us. I'm Lee with Geek City USA, and we'll see you next time.